If someone doesn't properly prioritize your level of care for what you're doing for them in any kind of connection between another person and you, what ends up happening is that there becomes an overdraw. Like, it's an overdraw. You reach a limit where, like, yo, bro, enough is enough. I can't take this for me. I can't take this for whatever the case may be. It breaks down and it affects you. What am I talking about? How do you measure this? What are you supposed to do? I feel no matter what, when it comes to your relationships and what you care and what you care about and how you interact with that person and level of care and how they value it, I think the first thing that's important is to always take assessment of your relationships, if that makes sense. Take an assessment of your relationship and genuinely ask yourself, what's the scales? You know what I'm saying? What's the scales? Is it actually that I'm receiving and also giving? I think it's important. Now, if it's always that you're on the giving end, I think that's an imbalance. That's an imbalance. And I'm not saying the imbalance can always be negative, because sometimes there are relationships where it might be worth it to be on the giving end, or it might be worth it to be not as much as receiving, just based on maybe the mutual understanding of benefit or the level of security of your relationship. You know what I mean? Like, those are the only two reasons in my mind that make sense, because no matter what, you should only be giving kind of like the uneven levels of care to relationships that you know are worth it. Right? And those relationships, to me, if truly, are very few. That's how I feel. Because no matter what, the only way something is of value is if, like, truly the most things that are of high value are scarce. I wanted to talk about understanding, like, the difference between value and care, and then the relationship between the two, and then how to, like, actually, like, what to do when the balances are off in what you're giving out versus what you're receiving in your relationships. And I'll tell you why I want to talk about this. When I was in university, I was like a part of like a student movement, and I realized that, like, being a part of that, like, we're focused on kind of putting positive message of, hey, as a young person, you got to make sure you're keeping yourself aware of your surroundings. You don't have to necessarily conform to whatever situations you find yourself in. We're trying to, like, create youth empowerment. We're trying to have, like, spread a message of good vibes, and understanding the importance of not conforming to everything around you. That was kind of one of the central things of this organization that we were kind of creating on campus. And I realized that right off the bat that, yes, people knew that, okay, you know what, I'm someone who, I'm not a shy person, and if you put me, like, in front of to give a presentation or to give a speech, I try my best to kind of communicate as best as I can. So, right off the bat, people realized that I was an effective speaker. Great. And it was that sometimes I noticed that every single time that something was needed to, if there was something that needed to be said, or if there was a session that needed to be led, or if there was a speaking thing that needed to go on, it was like my name was the first name that came about. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Kelvin's go-to guy for that, or Kelvin's go-to guy for that. Kelvin's go-to guy for that. And sometimes I'm as much as I don't mind speaking. Like I said before, I am an introvert. But I am an introvert who's really good at conversation. That's how I describe myself. So that means that, like, if I'm engaging people, I know how to talk and carry on a conversation, make you feel comfortable, or deliver a message effectively. But at the same time, too, I don't really like talking if I don't have to talk. So I'm the type of person that if I don't need to open my mouth, I won't. So a lot of times when I was called on to, for these speaking things and going on, like, for campaigns and stuff like that, I always found like, yo, y'all are always calling me and you don't even know my state of mind when you're calling me to do these things, right? You don't even know if I'm pissed. You don't know what, like, if I got a bad grade. You don't know if I don't have a dollar in my bank account. Y'all don't know, like, my current state of affairs, and y'all are asking me to do this one thing for this, like, extracurricular activity, or something that's outside of what I'm like my everyday parlay or everyday purview, right? And it was that I was doing it on the strength of relationship. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing it because, like, yo, these are my people. And obviously, when you do something on the strength of relationship, is that you know that, like, oh, these are your people, or you feel like relationship goes with, mutual respect, or you care about them, or it's feelings involved. Maybe it's an emotional relationship, it's a friendship relationship, it's a professional relationship. Sometimes when the word relationship is used, there's always some attachment of investment, right? And then what happens is that relationships, when they build, eventually there'll be a moment in time where there will be like a request that is put in, Because relationships, I feel like relationships always have some point of like withdrawal. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's just interesting. Like if you start dating, or you start talking to someone, talking to a girl, talking to a guy, whatever the case may be, you know, you build a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are talking. You maybe, you know what I'm saying, it's a little FaceTime, it's a 1-2 text, it's maybe a 1-2 go out, whatever the case may be, and it builds on that. And then it's always interesting how, as the relationship matures, there's always that point in time where someone makes a withdrawal from the relationship, or with withdrawal requests. You know what I mean? And it could be anything from big or anything small. The withdrawal request can be something like as simple as, yo, on your way to see me, do you mind getting me a can of Coke? You know what I mean? I'm a little bit thirsty. I don't have any drinks at the house. Do you mind grabbing me a can of Coke? And that's the withdrawal request. And based on like the equity, I'm a business major, so I might use, and everybody knows these terms, but I don't want to make it to sound too businessy. But based on like the equity or the cachet that you built in a relationship, you kind of like assess it and be like, okay, yeah, sure, it makes sense. If my girl is gonna say, you know, could I grab her something from the store on the way to her house? I mean, it's my girl, right? Because you built that equity in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? So the withdrawal request in the relationship happens, no problem. They're like, yeah, sure, you don't mind it. Versus if someone on the random street, or maybe her neighbor, you've never seen her neighbor a day in your life, and the neighbor says, yo, you know, you're coming to this area, would you mind picking up a bottle? Huh? What are you talking about? Get out my face with that. I don't know you. Now I'm seeing no new friends, right? And it's like, that is like a withdrawal request. So back to my story, right? So I'm noticing that this organization, because it's built with friends and peers and, you know, leaders, they're asking me to do a lot of things, right? And it's not a romantic relationship, but these are my people. These are my guys. These are, you know, the team that we built. We started an organization on university. You know what I mean? Hey, if you ask me to do something, even if I'm not really, you know, in the right frame of mind to do it, I might consider doing it just off the strength of the friendship or the strength of the relationship that we built, you know, as, you know, let's call it associates at university, right? But that's, again, equity that's been built up. So when a withdrawal request is issued by another person, you know, you assess it, and most times if the cachet and that rapport and trust is built, the request is approved. Vice versa, you can do the same, where, you know, like if it's your friends, right? It might be something as simple as, I don't even know what's an easy example you can put like with your friends. I don't want it to be something too crazy. Like it could just be like, oh, bro, if you're heading to the gas station, could you grab me a pack of chips? You know what I'm saying? On your way, I got you, bro. It's light. You know what I mean? Or, you know, if it may be like, I don't want to use too many like finance. I'm trying not to use like too many money related ones, because money is such a sensitive topic and sensitive area. But it could be anything like, oh, bro, could you, if you're like, if let's say if you're your roommates or something, and you live with your roommates, right? You have that relationship. That's an easy example. Maybe you're young, you have roommates, and you ask your roommate, you know what? If you're let's say that the roommate's vacuuming, for the people who actually vacuum. People actually, you have clean roommates. I ain't talking about your crusty roommates. Those ones, I feel so sorry for you if you have that kind of roommate. But you have responsible roommates. You know what I mean? Y'all clean together. Y'all cook together. You are responsible adults. Them type roommates. And maybe your roommate's vacuuming, and you ask like, oh, bro, do you mind running the vacuum over my room if you don't mind? You know what I'm saying? And that's a request that you're asking your roommate based on the strength of your relationship. Now, if you have a roommate that y'all just hello hi bye, odds are you're not asking him that or her that. But if you are really your roommate that, you know, y'all are boys, you know, maybe it's a university setting, or you're young, maybe it's a type where y'all talk on the regulars, or y'all are actually friends and your roommates, you don't mind asking that, and then, you know, the roommate would feel like, this is no problem, and they would actually clean. Like, that's happened to me before. So that's like normal, right? Situations where there's like, based on the level of care, like I said in what's in the title, based on the level of care or value that's been built, you know, everything is balanced. But why I wanted to talk about how to measure care and how to measure value is because like I said, there were times where, because we're so focused on kind of promoting that, again, back to my story, we're so focused on promoting the organization, where it's like, yo, I was doing those speaking engagements to the detriment, where I'm not in the best state of doing it, to the detriment of me and the detriment of myself, but I did it on the strength of relationship. Or vice versa, if it's your social relationship or a romantic relationship, that's a situation where you might not have it. You might even not, you might have $10, but because of the strength of your love for the person or your care for the person, they say they need $8 and you give it. And then sometimes you might say, you know what, it's me being generous off the strength because that's who I am. That's fine. But what happens when that is not, that level of care is not properly valued? I find it's so easy. Like, when you give a level of care and it's not valued in the right way, which, like, I gave you my last dollar, and you, like, imagine if you only had $10. Like, and mind y'all, I'm a ranter. Take from the rant what you will. Imagine you only had $10 and someone said, yo, I'm bro, you know, or your loved one, right? Your person, your romantic relationship, whatever the case may be, says, I need $8. You know what I'm saying? I need it bad. And you're like, you know what? Off the strength of my care, you know what I'm saying, for you, I'm gonna give you the $8, right? And then you find out that the $8 that they asked you for, maybe they took it and they bought the dumbest thing ever in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, the dumbest thing ever in the world. Maybe, like, they took the $8 and I'm not gonna say it like in a bad way. Maybe they took it and they bought, I don't know. And this is not, again, this is not shots to anybody who plays the lottery, but maybe they took it and bought a lottery ticket. You know what I'm saying? Now, on the off chance that the lottery ticket, you know, the lottery ticket actually comes through and it pops to $1 million, shout out. But it's gone. But they put into something that the return of it is so menial that, and you valued it more, but based off of care, you gave it away, right? You value that thing more, but based off of care, you gave it away. That keeps following me with the story. You would feel so, like, distraught or in your own thinking that, like, bro, like, yo, this was something that I cared so much about, but you didn't value it. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of messes with your mental psyche, your mental fortitude a little bit in situations where you're giving something you care about to something that is not valued, and it messes you up. It messes your day up. It messes, like, yo, I can't believe you did that. And I wanted to talk about what to do when you find that your care or your level of care is not being valued, and why there's importance of kind of making sure that, what's it called, it's properly you know, addressed on a regular basis. I'm going back to that story. What happened when, like, with my story, where there was an organization where I was, you know, kind of having those speaking engagements, right? What I found and I felt was that, yo, if I don't have, I realized that if I don't actually make a change to this, there's going to be a point where there's going to be a disconnection. There's going to be a disconnection because I can't keep doing this when I'm not in the, like, I'm being overdrawn, right, in terms of my level of activity, just because of the strength of my level of care for you. You know what I mean? And what happens is that that can weigh at you. That can spark things of frustration. That can spark things of genuine sorrow. That can spark things of, like, betrayal, because you feel like, yo, I've been doing so much. You know, people, how many times have you heard or someone say, yo, I did so much for this person, or I did so much for this group, and this is how they repay me back. You know, that, like, you gotta, like, we're hoping to avoid situations like that. And I'm gonna talk about the flip side of that, because truly sometimes you can be doing all that you need to do, and people can still mess up and still be evil-hearted, or still just kind of have the intention of trying to run one over you, because, like I said, the internet, the world is a savage place. The internet's an even savager, if that's a word, place. You know what I mean? So take an assessment of relationships. Take time to be like, yo, who am I connected to, and what is the level of a surety that this is a general relationship I need to have in my life. Because if you're not taking checks of who you, and of which levels of relationships that you're in, you will find that in some places it's unbalanced, and it's unbalanced in a relationship that's not worth it. You're putting too much too much resources into it. When you put too much resources into it, you have less resources for other more important things, and then now your brain is having to deal with the working of, yo, I can't believe I'm putting this much energy and time into something that's not this and not that, not this, not that. And a lot of times those are romantic relationships. And mind you, we will talk about romantic relationships a lot because obviously it does affect the mind, and it does affect the ways that our mental fortitude can be, built or destroyed, right? But it's that assess those relationships, assess them on a regular basis to see like, yo, how can I better improve the relationships I have, and what am I giving to those relationships as well? Because sometimes if they're uneven, and you'll be shocked to find that you are the one, because it's not only uneven one way. Let me say it like that. It's not only uneven one way. It can be uneven both ways, where you have some relationships where you're on the giving, receiving end, and then you have some relationships where you're only on the receiving end and not the giving end. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a few of those, and you have to realize and be mature enough to realize like, yo, if I'm in this situation, if this relationship is valuable enough to me, can I actually what can I do to kind of measure the scales or balance the scales? You know what I mean? What can I do? Because you don't want to be that person when you find them like, yo, you're a leech. You're just someone who just kind of drains life out of everybody. I don't think anybody generally takes pride out of doing that. Now, for some people to say like, yo, hey, if people want to bless me with things, who am I to reject the blessing? Hey, that's not what I'm talking about. But if someone is blessing you and you're not blessing them, how can you, like, at that point it's like, what gain or how can you assess the genuinity of a relationship? You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be reciprocal. If someone if someone goes above and beyond for you, maybe in a financial way, maybe you can repay them back in a physical way, or just a gesture, or it doesn't have to be tit for tat, but it's just a thought, or sending that out there that like, yo, if you help me in a situation, I want to be of help to you, or I want to help celebrate. You could do different things to kind of reciprocate the energy. That's all I'm saying. It has to be reciprocated of energies, right? So take the assessments. That's one. Take the assessments of relationships and find out which relationships are uneven, and then two, move accordingly, right? You want to move accordingly. If you find that you have multiple relationships where you're on the giving end and you're not receiving, determine the ones that you don't need and cut them off, because eventually you're going to find yourself in a place of in an overdrawn state, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Because the places of overdrawn state, those are the places where you're most susceptible to, depression, or you're most susceptible to anxiety, you're most susceptible to just all kinds of things affecting you. Sorry guys, my throat's a little funny. You're most susceptible to things of that nature, right? And like I said, the PYM militia, I haven't said that in a while. The PYM militia, my phone just dropped. What we're fighting is, we're fighting against the things that create darkness. You know what I'm saying? That's all we're trying to help fight and push off. Because if we fight the things that create darkness, then what's left has to be light, right? So when you find those relationships that are uneven, take the conscious effort to determine which ones are valuable, which ones aren't. Because if sometimes it's romantic, even if it's romantic, and address them. I'm not saying sometimes it may need to cut off the relationship altogether, but sometimes it needs to be like, yo, if it's uneven, then I need to cut this off and kind of move accordingly. Like, I need to realign the way I have this professional relationship. Demand, if it's like in your work, you're always kind of going above and beyond, and you never receive recognition for going above and beyond. You know what happens? You become bitter about that workplace. So if you're in a workplace where you're working your ass off, you're doing everything you can do, like, to go above and beyond for a company or organization, and you don't get some form of recognition or some kind of reciprocated a gain from it, then that's an uneven relationship, and that can drain on you. You know what happens? That's when you go to your friend and be like, can you imagine? Yo, I've been putting in all this extra work. I've been doing all these extra shifts. I've been sleeping at whatever, giving all this overtime, and these people have not even, you know what I mean? And you're just ranting about it. That's an uneven relationship professionally, right? So you make an adjustment. If that's the organization and that's how they are, dip, because someone else would probably appreciate that extra energy somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Cut that off. Look for another place to work. Start something different. Work if you work for yourself, whatever the case may be, because you don't deserve that. If it's a romantic relationship and you're always on the giving end, you gotta address it. Be like, and it's not off of an anger and we'll talk about what to do when going through emotional days, because I feel like that's also important. But it's to be like, yo, I noticed that, you know, this is the nature of a relationship, and I feel like it's not healthy for us to keep going like this, where I'm doing this and you're always like, I just don't think that's wise of us. We're not gonna make it. So it's either, you know, we kind of readjust ourselves going forward, or we just can't continue, because I don't think this is healthy for me. I don't think this is the right way to go. I wouldn't want to be in such a situation, and I wouldn't want to. And then how you have related back to be like, I wouldn't want to create a situation where I'm miserable in the relationship with you. I don't think I want that for you as well. You know what I mean? And you leave it at that. That's reprioritizing, re-strategizing the relationship romantically, right? So you can do it. You can have ways of, you know, checking the uneven situations of care and value. That's 2. And then 3, off the rip, I feel like no matter what, like, you should have a built-in expectations of relationships. You know, like, I am such a big proponent that one of the best safeguards to relationships with other people, it doesn't always have to be romantic, professional, friends, social, financial, you always have to build expectations of people. And you shouldn't only just build positive expectations, building some negative expectation, so that when it's kind of like when the scales don't balance, you know what I mean, when the scales don't balance, you don't lose your mind in shock. Because I feel like it's not necessarily like when there's an uneven measure of care versus value in any relationship, the thing that eats at you is not necessarily that it's uneven. The thing that eats at you is when you discover it's like a shock to you. That I feel like that's what eats at me, right? Where it's like you're shocked that, like, yo, I can't believe this person is actually taking me as like a lick. You know what I mean? They're taking me as like a lick. They're like they're like, that's what that level of like betrayal and disconnection is the biggest thing that kind of like hits at you, like, bro, really? So when you set an expectation of like, yo, no matter the friendship, and if it's a good friendship, you can be like, yo, this is the expectation. You know, we're friends. At the end of the day, I can't always expect that you will move in the right way. I can't always expect that. There may be days where there may be a chance if 7 times you may do me right, maybe 3 times you do me wrong. I just have to have that built in for my own mental sanity, right? I can't expect that because you're my greatest friend, you're 10 times out of 10, you're gonna move right. And then vice versa, I gotta build into my own mental sanity that maybe in situations where 7 times I do you right, 3 times I can be doing you wrong. Because hey, nobody is perfect. Like, it's not to say like you just build it in so that you when things do go left and you find there's an uneven measure of value and care, it's not like a huge shock to you, you know, because people will fail you, bro. Like that is just, it's just human beings in general. People will fail you at different points in time, so you cannot, and oftentimes it's the people who are closest to you who do not meet expectation. You know what I'm saying? So if you have too much good expectation, if you only center your good expectations on people who are close to you, then when they do not meet that expectation, you might not be equipped to handle the shock of it. But I'm saying a great way to kind of reduce the level of shock is that to say that the people who are closest to me, you know what can happen? Because they're so familiar with me, they might not prioritize me as much sometimes. Now, if they don't prioritize you at all, then that's a terrible person, bro. I can't fix that. But if you know you're surrounding yourself with good people, it's just to have like that doomsday scenario in your voice that, yo, what happens if this person stabs me in the back? What happens if this person comes, talks to me crazy? What happens if this person goes against my name? And this person can be your really good friend, or this person can be your boyfriend, your fiance. What happens? Like, what am I like? You're just thinking out. It's not like you're thinking negatively, but you're just thinking out in the case of the doomsday scenario. How am I gonna feel about it? And you kind of like process it in your head, like, okay, I'm gonna feel betrayed, I'm gonna feel hurt, I'm gonna feel this, I'm gonna feel that. But give myself some time. I'm gonna be okay after a certain period of time. And even if it might not ever happen, and maybe if it does happen, that the negative scenario happens and it's, oh my gosh, it's 10 times worse, at least you had a simulation. You know what I mean? It's sort of like we prepare for emergencies. Like when you were in school, I don't know, like one thing that we did in school was that like you have fire drills, right? The fire drills is like, yo, when you line up in class, go down these stairs, walk in a single file, and then this is what's gonna happen, right? And that's the fire drill. Now, mind you, if the building is actually on fire, it's probably going to be 10 times worse. The adrenaline is going to be high. People are going to be shouting. People are going to be crying. But at least you might have a chance of the emergency drill kicking in. All right, I got to get to these steps. I got to go down this hall, and I got to get through this door, because that's the safe way, right? I think it's the same way of building those expectations in a relationship, that if things do go left, where the care and the value don't line up because you're giving out too much care and the other person is not valuing it, you've built like kind of like emergency drills in your head, and you know how to maneuver. So when everything just goes chaotic and everything just messes up, you're kind of built for it because you expect it. And I feel like I'm always doing that in all my relationships, like of all levels, because it's not necessarily the thing that the person is, and it's not like projecting a negative thing onto the person. You're not saying that the person is going to fail you, or the person is going to screw you, or the person is going to undervalue you. You're just saying, if it does happen, this is how I'm going to maneuver. I will be back. I will cry my tears. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to play my broken heart songs. Don't get me wrong. I'm a rant, I'm a scream, and I'm a kick, but I'm going to have to get through it. And I've already spoken that to me. So at least I've done an emergency drill. I've done like a safety drill, a fire drill. Now, if the building's on fire, I might maneuver a little bit differently, but it might kick in. Same thing about setting up expectations. And that's, a big thing. So, wrapping up, when it comes to measuring, how to kind of effectively measure value versus care and what to do when it doesn't balance. One, I think you should always be taking stock and measuring your relationships. Two, when you do take stock and you realize in situations that it's not aligned, make effective steps to get it addressed. Cut it out, kind of realign, take stock. Like after you've taken stock, exit the relationship. Address the other party involved, move location, whatever you got to do. Just make an effective movement. And then three, just kind of have built-in expectations of the negative case happening, because you never know, so that if it does happen, you're kind of better prepped for it. That's my rant for the show. You know what I mean? Take from it what you will. For anyone see my face, subscribe. You know what I mean? Subscribe. That's what they say. So me too, I said subscribe. You know what I mean? Subscribe. If you see this on Facebook, subscribe, or follow. If you see this on Twitch, subscribe. If you see this on YouTube, subscribe. Wherever you see this, we live everywhere. You know what I mean? We live everywhere. But yeah, I hope someone benefited from it. Shout out to anybody who's in the chat. Enjoyed the show. Subscribe. If you're seeing this, subscribe. Subscribe on Twitch at PYM Live Official. Subscribe on YouTube at PYM Live. And follow on Facebook at the PYM Live page that we've set up. But it's been a great night for anyone who's watching this. I wish you perfect health. I wish you perfect wealth. I wish you perfect love. And I wish you perfect self-expression. And that in everything that you do, that your mind will be secure and growing every single day. I hope you learn from me what you may not know, and I want to learn from you what I don't know, and maybe we get better together. You know what I mean? But it's been fun. We will be back. Y'all have a great evening or morning wherever you're watching from. I think, let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Like I said, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Y'all have a great night, and then we'll be back on Sunday. You know what I mean? So peace.